welcome back. In the previous video, we created a controller to create an income like that. So in this video, you're going to be a quick one. Create a controller to fetch all income and then fetch single income. So let's go ahead and do that. So to make our life easier, let's copy this, and it's pretty simple. And then let's paste it here, and let's change this one to fetch all income. So the name here changed, called not create but instead fetch all income controller. And here for fetching, we are not receiving anything from the request. Remove that. And here we are not sending any payload to that. And here for the create, is not create but instead is find. So find returns all the records in this model, right? And then let's change this one to, I think, yeah, that's all what we need. We are done with it. So last thing is, let's export this, and let's go to income route here. Income route, make sure that you are inside the income route, and then let's require the controller. That is it. And let's create one more route. This time around is get, and that is it. So let me change this one to fetch. Oh, that is it. So let's go to Postman, and then let's copy this. For the meantime, it's free. Anybody can create fetch all. This time around, the only difference here is going to be get, and let's send. There you go. You see, we have it as that. We have 2 or 3 or more or 5 more incomes, right? We have money. Okay, so it's working. So let's create one more endpoint to fetch a single income, right? And it's pretty simple to do. Again, let's copy that, paste it, and let me call this one fetch single, like that. And here, what do you want to fetch by? If you want to fetch by the ID of the post, or by the title, or by the amount, it depends on your logic, how you want it, right? So for fetch all, you're going to implement pagination, but for now, let's leave it as it is for now. All right. So here, fetch a single income, meaning let's find this post by ID, right? So here, the implementation is going to be a little bit different. How can you get the ID? Here comes the question. How can you get the ID? So here, let's change this income, say find by ID, right? And what ID do you want to find? You can get this ID from the request body or the params. For now, let's change this one to fetch income detail, like that. So let's export this one for the meantime, and then for the meantime, let's comment everything inside this function, right? And then fetch income details, let's go to incomes route and then paste it. So let's create one route for that. It's a get request, but this time around we're going to use this. So here comes the changes. Because you want to find a single income, you don't know which income you want to fetch. Assume you have billions of income that you want to fetch. So because of that, we have to make this route dynamic by providing what is called ID. So under / ID. So whatever you pass in here will be accessible inside our controller, right? So now this endpoint becomes API, something like this, API income and some ID, right? So let's go to Postman and check it out, see how you can get that. So let's head over to where income route. So for the meantime, let's send res next.json, and let's say income details for now. So let's go to Postman. So let's save this and let's copy this, one of this, and change this one to fetch single or details. Not fetch a single, but fetch single. Okay, something like that. All right. So here, if you leave it like this, it's the same as fetch all. So let's try it out. Send, right? But if you add some random ID, it means that you're going to run the single one, fetch income details. So here, how can we get the ID here, right? And then pass it to Mongoose to find this particular post income that we want to fetch. So let's uncomment them back and let's remove this one from here. So here, if we try to send this request, let's see the error now, because this ID doesn't exist, right? So if let's fetch all, let's try to fetch all, and then let's get this ID, and then let's go to our controller and then let's paste the ID here. So it means that we are fetching this particular income. So let's come here and then send a request. You see, we have it, but we want to make it dynamic in such a way that you don't need to copy and paste into the function before you can find. That's why we make use of the params. But because we pass ID here inside our controller, we can access this ID as rec.params. So if you doubt, let's console log that. Console.log rec.params. Check it out. Sorry, params. Like that. So check it out and let's see. Send. Let's check it out here. You see inside our terminal we have the ID. This is the ID we used. So if you change, let's come to the incomes route and change this one to inc ID. Send again. Check the console, so terminal, and now we have what? Inc ID. So whatever you pass in there is now accessible as that. So ID. So now we know that inside our controller we have access to what? That ID, and we can get that one. Let's destructure as rec.params, and params we have the ID. So now instead of this, it's not fetch all, but here fetch details. So let's replace this one, and now let's replace this static ID with this ID. So there we go. When we send it now, so let's fetch all income, and then whatever you grab and then you paste it here, you're going to fetch that, send, and there we go. We have it. All right, so it's working perfectly. But what about assuming that this user provides something like this, and let's send? You see that we don't want to return this nasty error, right? We can return custom error says that, hey, Ari, this ID is not MongoDB ID. But for now, we can leave it. But in the front end, we're not going to allow the user to just copy and paste, but instead, the person will collect some details and automatically to grab the ID. So there's no need for that. So if you want, we can do that. So the next video, we're going to implement the update and delete.